morning, everyone. Before I move straight into my speech, I'm going to do something with us, and I want us to do it together. I have a few sheets of paper here, and we're just going to follow through even as I'm going to read each one of them, right? So this is the first one, and I'm just going to rip it out. And the second one, same thing. Third one, same thing. The fourth one, same thing. And then the fifth one. I should give you to help me reap, Abi. Now the question is, why are you so concerned? Are they not all paper? For many of you, as I was about to tear out this last note, it was as if I was about to tear you also. But now the question is, if it's just all paper, why are you so concerned about this guy? Do you know that people go to work for 30 days? At the end of all your hard labor and sweat, they will give you what? Why can't I just give you this? You're going to work for 5 years. You're going to work for 10 years. Now they want to give you a promotion. And guess what a promotion is? More. Because of this lack of paper, people have lost their lives. A doctor trained and certified can choose not to save a human life simply because they don't have this paper. You're in school, and as you were about to come into school, you gave them something. They call it school fees. It's simply multiples of this paper in exchange for a quality education. My research and my study into this paper began back in secondary school. My father placed a call to me, a year into my leaving from my secondary education into my university. And he placed a call to me. I was so excited to hear my father's voice. Hello, Daddy. And for once in a very long time, my father began to stammer. Bo. Hello, Daddy. And he said, do you know if you could still change your university of choice? And I said, why is this question relevant now? And then he said, we do not think we'll be able to cover the school fees of both you and your brother, Covenant University. And suddenly a vehemence rose in me because I saw my destiny was about to be bent again because of. And I made up my mind that this paper, anyhow legitimate, I will learn and I will have it at an early age. So I began to study while I was 17 years old. And I said to myself, before I clocked 18 years old, I was going to study 100 books on finance. So I got off social media, I got off everything, and I was reading as if my life depended on it. Because actually it did. And I began to study, and I began to study. And in my discovery one of these days, something happened to me which even got me more infuriated. I realized that they don't spend paper in Mars. They don't spend it in Jupiter. They spend money, only on Earth. When you go to the US, it's simply converted. I go to the US and they tell me 600 naira is equal to what? $1. I go to the UK, they tell me it's pounds. I go to Dubai, they call it dirhams. So I sat down and I said, this paper is not leaving the earth. It's just changing hands. And they are printing thousands of it daily. So it's increasing and it's not leaving the earth. So it's meant to be a cycle. How come the one in my pocket is reducing? There has to be something wrong. Why is this keeping me? What did I do? Who did I offend? And I really did begin to study around this paper. One of the most fascinating things was I realized that wealth has laws. And the same way we have physical laws, the law of sowing and reaping, the law of gravity. I realized that these laws were no respecters of age. And so if a 2-year-old child goes to a farm and he plants a seed, the soil is going to return a harvest. If a 50-year-old man does the same thing, the soil is going to return the same harvest. Because the laws are no respecters of person. And I said to myself, if truly these laws are no respecters of person, I'm going to put myself and give myself all into these laws. Let's see if I'm going to make this money at a young age. And by 18, I made my first million. I started my first business. And then we scaled up that year. And it began to look really easy. I'm like, so you were here all the while. Welcome. Within that first year, we scaled up profit more than $40,000 in the first business. And then we started up the second, the third, and we're currently on the fourth business. And it began to look like, where was all this all the time? And then I made up my mind and I committed myself to see young people legitimately, for me, which is the key word, legitimately wealthy. Because I mean there are other means. But I committed myself to teaching these laws. Like I said in my discovery, I realized that there are mainly 3 phases in wealth creation. Number 1, wealth generation. Number 2, wealth preservation. Number 3, wealth multiplication. Anyone that can have that can understand these 3 phases, you'll do well with money. And when it came to wealth generation, I had a very hard time because of the nature of where we are, Africa. Because in wealth generation, there are 2 things that are important. And I like to use the analogy of a car and a driver. A good driver and a bad vehicle, movement will still be hindered. A bad driver and a good vehicle, movement will still be what? Hindered. I realized that we had many limiting beliefs. And one statement that I constantly see everywhere is that one of the greatest challenges of poor people is that they are amongst themselves. They are amongst themselves. So there is no source of motivation to even do better. So perhaps you are the richest, or like I would love to say, you are the least poor amongst the poor people. You become okay. So I realized that there were many issues that we had to work on, belief systems. We had to work on people's paradigms, reorient their orientation towards finances. We had to teach them. I went to a seminar one of these days, and I felt so bad. I saw a woman, quite old lady, and she sat down, and I was in that seminar. That was one of the first seminars I went. And the facilitator was earning $2,500 passive income per week. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. He has something to say. And a woman sat down there at a corner as he was teaching on, developing your mind, becoming more valuable, and all of that. And I saw her saying, what is this man saying? Let him just stand up and give us... And I looked with pity. I said, little wonder why you are here. Obviously, I didn't say that out. I said that to myself. We had a lot of limiting beliefs. And then we had people who had read all the books, but then they had terrible wealth vehicles. We have businesses that did not evolve. The man who was selling newspapers yesterday perhaps would have been a millionaire. But currently, how many of you still read newspapers physically? Almost nobody. Business who did not evolve. And I did a very serious study around even foldering down. And when you look at this paper, prior to this paper, what we had was a system called trade by barter. Right? And sometimes we have to go back to see the desires that birthed these innovations. They will give us an insight to why the innovations are around. This paper was not always around. So we had people, if I had perhaps rice and I wanted yam, I have to find somebody who wanted rice and had yam. So at the origin and at the advent, what you realize is that there was always something going out for something to come in. If you're going to generate this paper, something must go out. That thing is called value. I like to say it like this. Money is a shadow of value. Wherever you see the human, you will see the shadow. If you find value going out, money will come in. When it comes to wealth generation, you have to generate value. What can you do? What skill do you have? Now you have generated wealth. You're making some money. You have a business or 2 or 3 or 4. Which leads me to the next phase, which is wealth preservation. And I like the way Robert Klassen said it. He said, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. Dr. David said it this way. You do not grow big to manage well. You manage well to grow big. We live in a society that doesn't believe in management. You hear people say things like, manage it so it's remaining small. No, you manage it so it doesn't become small. We live in a very wasteful society. A society that doesn't know how to manage. We think management or saving is a result of excess. No. It is saving that actually brings excess. When rounding up, I'll move on to the third phase very quickly. But prior to going into that, and even in nature, we see this. Within every fruit is the seed for the next generation of the next fruit. A lot of people are eating the seeds today and believing for the forest tomorrow. No. You must be disciplined enough to take out the seeds, or else forget the forests. Like a tuber of yam, the top must be kept aside. So you plant it. If you are not disciplined, if you eat that top, perhaps that'll be the last one you will eat. You must keep aside some of the money you make. Which leads me, like I said, to the last phase, which is wealth multiplication. A seed in itself is not powerful. But when you combine the seed plus the ground, wait and watch to see the tree. It is that which you kept aside plus the capacity to multiply it that generates wealth. Saving is keeping money aside. Investing is setting money to work. But you must keep aside so you can send it on an errand to work. Right? I have a chart here, and I don't know if we could get it on the screen. Right? Thank you so much. Now, these 3 people, we have Billy, we have Susan, and we have Kim. Right? By the way, this is a page from a book, The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Now, if you look at this, we have 3 people here. And what you realize, I do not know how clearly you can see this, but I'll help you. In the first column, we have Billy. Now, if all of them invested at a 10% yearly return, right? And Billy started investing by age 15. And we're using a random figure, $3,000, right? So if he invested for the first year, second, third, fourth, and fifth, altogether he has invested how much? $15,000, right? So if he invested that from 15 to 19, he had $15,000, right? Now we go to Susan, who started at age 19 and invested all the way to age 26, right? If you don't mind, can I get the full screen? Thank you. All the way to 26. What you realize is that Susan started later, but she invested more, right? And if you go up onto the last way, you see Kim, who started at age 27 with a 10% annual return, all investing the same amount. Now you realize that Kim invested a lot more, right? But then when you see the final figures, right? Thank you so much. The one who invested $15,000, because he started early, has a total of $1.6 million. That sounds like good money, right? The one who invested, $24,000, she started at age 19, has a total of $1.5 million. So she invested $24,000 and she has $1.5 million. And the last person who invested $117,000 has $1.2 million. Is the difference quite clear? What does this tell you? Time is an advantage. And this is a core reason why I do not just have a passion to see people wealthy. I have a passion to see young people legitimately wealthy, because I'm sure that time is an advantage. This is something I'm committed to, and I'm committed to seeing so many young people also millionaires, because like I said, time is an advantage. Thank you.